This morning, Sony Pictures dropped the trailer for Kraven the Hunter. Now, Kraven the Hunter is an interesting character because, first and foremost, this is one of those movies that I never thought they would actually make. Meaning, you hear about the announcement, you hear about the plan, and you think, well, is it actually going to come to fruition? Remember, it took like 20 years for The Rock to actually play Black Adam. That's one example, but there's also other examples where a studio will put out a number of announcements, say we're going to do this, 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 and this. And when we do these things, they're going to be tied into this other thing, which, of course, Kraven the Hunter is a character from the Marvel Comics, from the Spider-Man universe, from the Spiderverse, that is to say. I didn't think we'd actually ever get this movie. It might sound silly, but you know how it is. Like, it's a movie like the Madam Web Project. Like, I never thought we were going to get that, and apparently that's still going to fly from what we know. But the trailer's out, Kraven the Hunter, and I want to say this about Kraven. Kraven the Hunter has a very special place in my heart because Kraven the Hunter, there's a Spider-Man storyline from the 80s called Kraven's Last Hunt. Kraven's Last Hunt is my favorite Spider-Man story of all time. And it's a story that I never thought we'd ever see in a movie or a TV show because it's very, 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 very dark. Now, with the current era, with the fact that, of course, this movie is rated R, it is rated R, and with the fact that we've got several different upcoming projects in the superhero genre, I don't think we're going to get the Kraven's Last Hunt storyline here. I don't think we're going to get that. But having a Kraven movie that looks like this seems pretty interesting. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. With the Flash flopping and lots of other comic book movies flopping, I am genuinely wondering if we have finally hit that superhero fatigue that I've been wondering about and I've been curious about since Endgame, where I had a feeling it was going to happen, and we're starting to get there now. With the Sony movies, DC, we've got Marvel, Disney Plus stuff, we've got also, besides all that, we've got the Amazon Prime stuff, you know, the Invincibles and stuff like that. There's a lot of superhero content out there right now. But this movie looks different. This movie looks to be a little bit more maybe based in reality, although there is obviously some goofy stuff in the trailer. It does seem to be based in, like, it doesn't seem to be an over-the-top schlocky comic book film. It seems to be more of a grounded story. Now, the movie's being directed by J.C. Chandor, who I think his biggest movie he had done so far, he's got a catalog of films that really aren't super mainstream, but he's got a few. He's got one called Triple Frontier and one called All Is Lost, but he doesn't have like a big studio hit. And this could be it. Now, the character of Kraven the Hunter, Sergei Kravinoff, is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. Now, Aaron Taylor Johnson is also known as being the guy who who played Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. So now he's a guy who's actually playing multiple superheroes, and that's kind of been a thing. I mean, let's not forget Chris Evans was Human Torch before he was Captain America. Jared Leto is in this movie, which means that it's going to somehow tie into Morbius. So it seems like Sony's strategy here, starting with Venom, and then with Morbius, and now with Kraven the Hunter, is to kind of explore Spider-Man's rogues gallery, because all these characters, whether or not they're good or bad, because all three of these characters have had runs as villains and as heroes, it's to explore them. So Kraven the Hunter in this movie is kind of like this savage sort of anti-hero, if that makes sense. Now, I mentioned Jared Leto, but also the interesting story here is Russell Crowe is playing Kraven's father. Now, I don't recall Kraven's father being in the comic book story, although I don't know the entire character history of Kraven the Hunter. He's in this. Another guy, of course, he's obviously known for playing the father, Jor-El, in Man of Steel. So being the father of a main hero is kind of where Russell Crowe fits in now. But he's also Zeus, the father of Hercules in the MCU. So this guy's played the father of the main of big heroes, at least a few times. And I'm not gonna lie, I find it funny that Hollywood is always using him to play this, senior role, so to speak. Now, The movie comes out in October. I also want to say that the villain of this movie, or at least one of the villains, we know that Christopher Abbott is playing the lead villain, but they haven't revealed who that is yet. But Rhino is going to be in this movie. Another Spider-Man villain, played by Alessandro Nivola. Alessandro Nivola started off having a small role in Face Off. He's an experienced actor, but he will be donning the Rhino suit, that is to say. Now, obviously, because we're seeing the Rhino here be a different portrayal than the one from Paul Giamatti in The Amazing Spider-Man, that tells me that this is another one of those alternate timelines. This does not take place in the Amazing Spider-Man timeline. It probably fits in with Morbius and Venom and those movies. And there were rumors for a long time that the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man was going to be the Spider-Man of this Sonyverse. But I guess that's not where they're going with this. It seems to be not the direction they were going in. But with the Spider-Verse movie doing so well, they could have a billion Spider-Man universes. This is just another one. Now, I'm going to be honest about this trailer. It looks interesting, but not that interesting. There's things about the trailer I enjoyed. There's Easter eggs here and there. I think Aaron Taylor Johnson has proven that he can definitely act. As far as him being a leading man, you know, Godzilla was the last sort of big movie that he actually was the lead for. And the human parts of that movie weren't that interesting. But I'm going to give the movie a chance, even though I, once again, find it really weird. Because it takes balls for Sony to even do a Kraven movie. It does take some balls because he's not really like a mainstream Marvel character, but they're going to try and make him that. Neither was Morbius, really. But some of the action scenes and the idea of like Kraven communicating with animals, the fact that he can take on multiple guys that have weaponry beyond his, and he can just use his instincts, like that feral sort of, you know, woodland kind of story. I look at this and I think, man, like if they had actually done that sort of solo Wolverine origin story, and I don't mean X-Men Origins Wolverine, I mean like one sort of like this, they could have done things like that. Even though Kraven isn't the same as the Wolverine, nevertheless, it seems like a decent enough movie. But again, I think to myself, and again, I can't even say I'm too hyped for it. I'm kind of like, I'm gonna go see it, but I'm not like super hyped. Like I'm not like losing my mind over it. I'm not like, you know, I can't wait till October. I'm not feeling that with this one. I'm really not. You know, it's Sony using their Spider-Man IP to take advantage of the market that wants superhero movies, but the market is starting to stagnate when it comes to superhero movies. And I'm not sure if Kraven the Hunter is the answer, and I feel bad about that because with Russell Crowe and Aaron Taylor Johnson and even Ariana DeBose playing Calypso, like, it's too bad. It's too bad. And I do like how the Chameleon is also in this movie. I should have mentioned, of course, the Chameleon, played by Fred Hetchinger. So they're bringing in a lot of different characters from the Spiderverse, the Spiderman Universe, the SSU, as they're calling it, to kind of flesh things out. But it's so weird to have a Spider-Man story without Spider-Man. So this script has to be good. And if it's one of those stories where it's a family feud, it appears to be, where Kraven's kind of somewhat feuding with Russell Crowe's character, even though the trailer's a little bit weird because we're not really sure whose side he's on, and also feuding with the Chameleon. These are characters that I wish we really got to see interact with Spider-Man because those are some of the great stories ever. But man, they sure are pumping out the Spider-Man content this year. And I count this as a Spider-Man movie, even though some don't think it is. It is, dude. It's a Spider-Man-centric character. It literally is. Venom, Venom 2, Morbius, and now the next one's Kraven the Hunter. So it's just we have multiple multiverses going on, multiple different situations with different characters. How do they tie into the MCU with, of course, the upcoming Secret Wars? Will Kraven be in that? I think a lot of folks are counting on that. I think a lot of folks are counting on these characters appearing in Secret Wars, which kind of elevates the Spider-Man universe a bit higher, you know, as far as importance goes. But I have a weird feeling that this movie's gonna end up being like the Morbius movie, where it's just there. It's just there. Nothing too impressive from this trailer, but interesting. But not interesting enough to where I'm hyped. That's my honest opinion. Take care.